How can you sell a house that was on the market conventionally with a realtor for 275 days? Hey guys, welcome to another Deal Structure Sunday. I am joined by High Six Associate and Strategy Expert, Mr. Brian O'Neill from Chicago. Hey Brian, welcome back, buddy. You're like the return veteran now.
That's right. I got my Chicago Cubs shirt on for you today too.
We won't hold that against you. I was just telling them where you're from. All right, so let's do the basics. Let's talk about, as always, we'll do the basics and then we'll jump over to deal structure over time. But let's talk about source first.
Yeah, this was an expired listing.
Okay. Got it how though?
Say that I got him slide broadcast voicemail. I caught him, I believe, the day that his listing expired. So good timing again.
So 275 freaking days. I mean, how many listings was that? Do you remember?
He went through at least two realtors, one being his brother.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Family took good care of him.
It was just really challenging, super high HOA.
Okay. So is that why we'll talk about it nuances, actually. I don't want to get too deep here. So, expired, you got him the first day he went off the market that time. And then how long before you had signed it on the market from that call?
It was about 2 weeks total before we signed the agreement.
And was that more because of COVID logistics or just kind of negotiating back and forth?
We were just going back and forth. It really wasn't a logistics thing because this was in June. I was able to see the house. It was just more of, he was very thorough getting me all of the information because again, there's a lot of, there's an HOA and he's got, he's out of escrow. So he's paying his taxes separately. So he just was giving me all the information. I was very thorough reading everything.
Okay, cool. And then last but not least, before we dive into numbers, what's his motivation? Besides being frustrated.
Correct. There are a couple of important pieces. Number one, because there's an HOA involved, he was actually violating, they knew about it, but he was renting a couple of rooms out in the property, which HOA does not like. They were letting him do it. And then he has another house, another townhouse that he wanted to move into full time. It was his mother's house and she had passed. And you got
him at frustration level too. Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we fixed pain. That's the whole idea. So let's talk about what you tied it up for with, this is a sandwich.
It's a 60-month sandwich lease. Yes.
60, sweet. Let's talk about what you tied it up for, the debt plus the equity. And just to repeat, I know you and I know, but we sometimes forget if there's a new viewer. So on a sandwich lease, we do say a sales price, which Brian will say in a minute, but we only use that for a formula. The formula being, hey, based on the sale price of X, there's X amount of debt owed, and there's X amount of cash we're guaranteeing you. That cash stays solid. The debt obviously goes down and down and down over time, which is why we like longer terms. And that's to Brian's benefit, not the seller. The seller just locks in his cash. So what's the formula here for debt and equity, Brian?
Sure. He owed roughly $239,000 on his mortgage.
Okay.
We tied it up for $328,000 with his equity. I'm rounding at $89,000, although he gave me a very specific number.
Okay, so 89K, he wanted for equity. Yeah, we'll talk about that in nuances because that's just different to get that specific with how much cash you want out. Okay, great. So you went on the market at how much?
We went on at $369,000.
369, cool markup. Okay, so let's talk about payday 1, 2, 3 before we talk about nuances over on the overtime. Payday 1.
Payday 1, our buyer had 7% right up front, so $27,000 plus the first month's rent.
Okay, so this is cool for two reasons. One is upfront instead of over time. We're always fully disclosing that, hey, a lot of times these payday ones are over time, but to come up with 7% right up front is really sweet. Was there more payday one after that? Scheduled or no?
There's nothing scheduled. Given the situation with the buyer that we selected, there's potential for further payday ones down the road, but nothing scheduled. And again, I was happy with the 7% upfront.
Especially on a property that took, Well, I want to know two things. We'll talk about it more detailed in the overtime, but I want to know, it took him forever, almost a year, and he still didn't sell it. It took you how long to fill it?
Like 4 months.
4 months. That's a heck of a lot better. Okay, less than half the time that he played around for it. And what's the motivation of not the motivation, but what's the stumbling block for the buyer? Why couldn't they go conventional?
Yeah, great question, and really important is, buyer went through a very messy divorce, and for everyone out there, divorces absolutely can destroy your credit.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bankruptcy involved, and just had no other option. And the buyer actually said to me on one of our calls, I'm paying $2,500 a month in rent. I'm getting nothing out of it. At least with this scenario, I get something. I get the house. Yeah,
I love it. And it kind of fit your avatar too, didn't it, Brian?
Both on both sides, 100%.
I love it. So just you guys that are watching this, jump over to the overtime when we're done here, because we're going to talk about what that meant. What do you mean avatar, and what's Brian working on in addition to his regular deals? I want you guys to hear that. It's super important, especially with the chaos, but it's super important always, and it always will be for the next decade to come. Okay, so payday one, payday two, what are you paying the seller, and what are you getting from the buyer?
Sure. The monthly payment to the seller with everything is $2,678 per month.
Okay.
The payment from the buyer is $2,802 per month, which equates to a spread of $124 a month.
That's all the money for that house, isn't it?
It is. And again, it took, we really had to get aggressive with the monthly because the HOA was a sticking point for a lot of people. A $700 HOA just turned a lot of folks off. Loved the house, loved the area.
Okay, great teaser right there. So in the overtime, we're going to talk about what he just meant by that comment about we got to get creative, because there's ways to do that. That's how we operate and how we teach. Okay, so what's that come to over the whole term?
$7,440.
Because what term are you basing that on?
60, if it goes full.
You are doing the whole thing. Okay, good.
I am doing the whole thing, right?
Yep, I think you should. Okay, so payday three, which again, I make assumptions sometimes. Let me just recap it for these guys, Brian. Payday three being his markup, his principal pay down, less what he already collected at the payday one.
Correct.
So what's the principal pay down on this thing?
Principal pay down is $354 per month. If it goes full term, you're looking at $21,240.
Sweet. And markup was roughly what?
41,000.
41K. And we add the 7,400 for payday. I'm sorry, we're not there yet. We're only on payday three. What's the minus the deposit? What's payday three?
Minus the deposit, it's $35,240 is the total payday three.
Cool. So you add up all three paydays, net to you, how much?
$71,482.
Okay. So guys, I hope you're hearing that, because what's our webinar and our live trainings based it on an average of 75. It's kind of like very common average right now. We have associates lower and higher, but super, super common average right now. Brian, that's deal sold for you of how many?
That's number three. And this was probably taken, I think, 5 or 6. I don't know the exact number, but number 3.
Okay, so interesting. Out of the 3 deals, do you know off the top of your head, or even a round number, all 3 paydays, all 3 deals that you've generated so far?
All 3 is about 189,000. Of course, I know that.
Cool. So I want them to hear that. So 3 deals, almost 200 grand in payday 1, 2, and 3. Not too shabby.
Nope.
All right. Is there anything 10,000 foot view that we didn't cover before we jump to the overtime?
No. I think we got everything covered there. Just a great deal. I'm glad we sold it. It was a challenge. It was difficult for sure. Yeah,
and congrats, obviously. And I guess one question for you before we jump to deal structure overtime and dive deeper, and that is, I could ask this a million different ways. What's the in this deal? What was the one thing that we could provide for you as a coaching arm, or did you have a smooth sailing with this one? Like, I honestly don't remember. There's too many deals in my head.
Sure. Obviously, coaching the entire way through, especially as it became more difficult getting the thing sold.
Okay, so that's that piece with the monthly we'll talk about. Okay.
Yeah. So Nick really, he and I were in constant communication. Again, we set up the plan for the monthly, the monthly plan, and it ended up working out. We finally got to the number where the market reacted.
Cool. All right, guys, that wraps up another deal structure Sunday at a cool 71 grand. Go ahead and jump over to Smart Real Estate Coach Academy and fire up this week's deal structure overtime. We're also going to tell you how to get a free strategy call with Brian personally, if that's what you want to do. And you can learn more, but more importantly, he'll give you some nuggets to walk away with.